Welcome to Cape Independence Minutes. Clear insights on the Cape's journey towards self-determination.
Hi, I'm Joan. I'm a forensic psychologist, and I only mention it because it's relevant to the topic of this discussion, the death penalty. The death penalty is a subject that has reignited strong emotions across South Africa, following Minister Gayton McKenzie's recent calls for the return of the death penalty. In the context of decentralization, it's important to talk frank and openly and lay some facts on the table. This is not an easy conversation. It's deeply emotional for victims of violent crime, for communities living in fear, and for law-abiding citizens who feel that justice has failed them. But it's also one that demands calm reasoning and evidence, not just outrage. South Africa faces one of the highest violent crime rates in the world. Murder, rape, and armed robbery are everyday realities in many communities. Understandably, people ask, if the system can't protect us, shouldn't we bring back the ultimate punishment? Supporters see it as retribution, deterrence, and closure. They argue it saves taxpayers billions that would otherwise keep dangerous criminals alive for decades. For some, it's simply justice, an eye for an eye. As someone who has worked in forensic psychology and been involved in a death penalty case, I've seen firsthand how complex these decisions are. Globally, over 50 countries still enforce the death penalty, including several in Asia and the Middle East, where public executions are intended to deter crime. And indeed, those countries often report lower violent crime rates. But correlation isn't causation. Research shows little or no solid proof that capital punishment deters crime more effectively than long-term imprisonment. In fact, it's also much more expensive than life imprisonment. But what we do know is that wrongful convictions happen, even in advanced justice systems. In the United States, for example, the Innocence Project has helped exonerate 189 people sentenced to death through new DNA evidence. That represents at least one exoneration for every 8.2 executions that have occurred in the modern era of the death penalty. Common causes include mistaken eyewitness identification, flawed forensic methods, unreliable memory recall, coerced confessions, biased investigations, and circumstantial evidence that together fail to meet the evidentiary hurdle of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. When the state holds the power to end a life, a single error becomes irreversible. Let's look locally. South Africa's justice system struggles with corruption, capacity, and inequality. Our policing and prosecutorial structures are already under immense pressure. Reintroducing the death penalty without radical reform could amplify those injustices, with wealthy or politically connected offenders less likely to face penalties. That's not justice. That's vengeance disguised as order. So what can we do instead? First, we must focus on zero violent crime through prevention, stronger community policing, rapid forensic turnaround, rehabilitation that actually works, and above all, a culture of accountability in law enforcement and government. Secondly, if society ever revisits the death penalty, it must come with independent checks and balances. For instance, mandatory forensic review panels, automatic appeals, and transparency to guard against bias or error. Third, we must pursue societal reforms that rebuild respect for human life, public order, and personal discipline, restoring the moral fabric that deters violence long before it happens. And finally, in a democracy, people must have a say. So should South Africa hold a referendum on the death penalty? Possibly, but it would require amending the Constitution, which currently guarantees the right to life under Section 11. An independent Western Cape, with its own constitution, could one day hold that debate more directly, provided it's grounded in reason, evidence, and respect for human rights. The death penalty debate will always divide us, but division can always drive reflection. Justice isn't only about punishment, it's about trust. And until every citizen feels protected and heard, restoring or rejecting the death penalty won't heal the root of the problem. I invite you to share your thoughts respectfully, whether you agree or disagree, because our future as a society depends on open, informed dialogue, not fear or revenge. Thank you for watching. You can contact me or CapeXit at info@capexit.org for comments and questions. Thank you.